Kia ora tātou whānau, welcome to episode 13 of the Paul and Henry show. That's Paul and Henry talking about stuff that you should probably know. We're back in the office today. We're back.
Yeah.
Last time we were here, we were in level 3 or 4. We were at home, and we had Erin Wilson with us, who couldn't travel to Wellington, so we did it online. But today we've got the privilege of being in the office, and Jenna is with us. You can't see her because she hides behind the camera.
Yeah.
But big shout out to Jenna who makes all of this happen.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about conflicts of interest and some other stuff that's closely related to that we couldn't think of a title for.
Yeah.
Do you want to set the scene? What is a conflict of interest?
Yeah, I guess I wanted to set the scene by starting with the obvious, which is that we work in government. Hopefully you've noticed that by now, that we work in government, and that's a bit different. And a lot of people I work with, it's their first job in government working here. And sometimes because we're a Crown entity and we're so operational, and we use words like in the business or in the enterprise, you can sort of feel like, hey, we're not actually that close to the beehive sort of part of government. But we are. Legally, sort of constitutionally, we are really close to the core of government, which means that we are subject to the Public Service Commissioner's Code of Conduct. So we've got our own Code of Conduct, which was redone this year, Te Tikanga Whanonga. And anyone who's joined recently will have filled in the declaration at the back. If you haven't joined recently, I reckon this is worth checking out. It's been updated this year. It includes all of our agency values, but it goes on to talk about the standards that we have to apply, which mostly come from this beautiful one-pager,
Big document,
which is the Public Service Code of Conduct. And really what all of this gets at is that the public expect us to act with high standards of probity. So as a lawyer, I kind of think of these things as you've got your legal standard, the things, and that's sort of a bottom line, like no fraud. That's always a good principle to work on. No fraud.
Good starting point. Don't break the law. There you go. Tip number 1.
Yeah, but then we have standards of probity, and probity is, where did I write this down? Had to look up a definition for this.
Please, you're going to clarify it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think many people will know.
Strong moral principles or the highest standards of behaviour. So probity is that word to capture basically, you might think about it as ethics or best practice or good conduct. It's that bit above the legal standard that is absolutely necessary working government. So we're going to talk mostly about conflicts of interest, and then I'll come back to some of the other rules that sit in that framework.
And really strongly encourage you to look at the documents that Henry's just referred to. There might be some more later. Jenna will put the links up in this video. They're worth checking out. They are the things that will keep you out of trouble.
Yeah.
You know, and you can get yourself in trouble with good intention if you don't know this stuff. So check them out.
Yeah.
So I've got a bit of a layman's explanation of a conflict of interest. It's where stuff outside of work and stuff inside of work potentially conflict with each other, and someone gets a benefit, either a financial benefit or some other sort of benefit, and that might be me or one of my mates or someone else.
Yep.
Is that the legal definition?
Yeah, basically that's it, right? You've got two interests, and they either do conflict or they're seen to conflict. There's that. The other theme, I think, through today's discussion will be about perceptions, about how other people looking in might reasonably see our activities, because we don't have time to give them all of the minute details. Our own conflicts of interest policy says it's about being influenced by your private interests when doing your job. So that's it, really. You're influenced by your private interests when doing your job, and that could be because of something you're doing outside of your job or people close to you.
If I could give you, perhaps I've got a few examples where I've found myself in positions of being conflicted. Recently, the government introduced the Clean Car Rebate Scheme, and people can get up to $8,500 if they buy a new plug-in hybrid or hybrid electric vehicle, New Zealand new. I knew that was coming, and I knew when it was going to go live. And one of my good mates was lining up to buy a brand new EV, and every time he talked to me, he kept going, "Oh, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that?" You know, he was inside of the eligibility criteria, and I was going, "Oh man, I can't tell you. Just wait." Because if I tell you to wait, you're getting a real benefit. That other members of the public are specifically not getting. Because we don't want to disrupt the commercial flow and the usual process and business of people buying and selling cars. So if the government announced a month in advance or 2 months in advance that this was coming, No one would have bought an EV. The car dealers are out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
The whole system grinds to a halt. So my mate's telling me this, and the whole time
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh, I want you to know that you should wait, but I never told him.
Yeah,
And
exactly
I was really conflicted morally about that too, because I said, he's a good mate, and he's missing out on $8,500 because of me, and he's going to find out. And of course, he did find out, and every time he sees me, he gives me a bit of stick about it and says I cost him $8,500, but he kind of understands why.
Yeah, but you didn't cost him $8,500. If you had told him, the mere fact of him knowing you would have saved him $8,500. That everyone else in the country who doesn't know you wouldn't have got that saving.
Yeah,
who was in his position.
Yeah.
And this actually brings me to another point in the code of conduct, which is that we must never misuse our position for personal gain. And what you've described there is kind of like an insider information, insider trading issue. Now, again, the laws on insider trading are very particular about basically about the stock market. But the principles from those apply to people working in government through this stuff. So that's a really common one in government, is that you know something that is not in the public yet. And I often get confused or worried when the government has announced the big idea, or that something is about to happen in an area, but you're working on it and you know all the details. And I just have to stop talking publicly about that stuff because it's too hard. I don't trust myself to remember what's already in the public domain and what's not.
Yeah, that's good advice.
So with Clean Car, I had a similar situation. I had a friend come round, they'd just been to a car yard, and I was sitting there going, I'm sure that there's something in the public domain about this. But so I just smiled and nodded and went, oh, cool. Oh, yep. And then fortunately, he didn't buy one that weekend. But yeah.
So another example of that might be, if you were leading a piece of policy work to incentivize ERUC, it would be wrong to, in your private life, jump on Sharesies and buy some shares in E-Road.
Very good example.
Yeah.
So the Code of Conduct says we must ensure our actions are not affected by our personal interests or relationships. So similarly, if instead your friend was actually a huge importer of electric vehicles, you would have to think carefully about that and manage that. And we must never misuse our position for personal gain. And as I say, it's about our position, but also about the information we know.
Yeah, so there's a good point there, Henry, around declaring your conflict.
Yes.
So I never declared that my mate wanted to buy an EV and talk to me about it, and I kept my mouth shut and never told him anything.
Yeah.
Because I kind of didn't feel I needed to declare that. But if my mate was a big importer of cars, I probably would have already declared that.
Exactly.
I would have gone, hey, I'm working on this EV project. One of my mates is a big importer of EVs, and I would have declared that. Then the organisation can go, well, how do we manage this stuff?
Yeah,
that's right. What are we going to do to protect the integrity of the whole process in the system?
So our policy tells us what employees are required to do, which is to disclose, and we have the annual declaration forms that come around now, but that's just an annual check-in. If at any time you feel there's a new interest to declare, put your hand up, and then there's also a really helpful checklist in this policy. At the back, there's a checklist that'll help you determine if you've got a conflict and give you and your manager guidance on what to do. But without going into all that detail. But the first step is you've got to put your hand up.
Yeah, exactly. And if in doubt, call it out.
Yes.
If I'm not sure, you're better to go, I think I've got a conflict here. And someone go, no, that's fine, you haven't. Then not raise it. And then you actually do have a conflict. And then it can look dodgy.
Yeah.
Hey, one of the other things I wanted to talk about was decision making.
Yes.
And I'm going to use a very real example from my previous role.
Mm-hmm.
I was responsible for deciding what maritime accidents got investigated and what ones didn't. And a friend of mine's a farmer. His son owned a jet boating company that operated from the river near the farm. And he had an accident. Now that comes across my desk. So straight away, I had to put my hand up and say, I can't make any decisions around this information. Mm-hmm. I'm going to step away and let someone senior delegate some other person to make all the decisions. And if the decision is to investigate, I have to be really clear that I can't even access that file.
Yes.
I don't, which is hard when you're the manager.
Yeah.
And you're going to have your staff going off doing the investigation. But generally, it's go and do it and don't even talk to me about it.
Yes.
And be really obvious and deliberate in documenting all of that stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, we've talked about this in the natural justice video about bias, and the legal test there's actual bias and apparent bias.
Yep.
And again, in conflict of interest world, we talk about actual conflicts, potential conflicts, where basically depending on how things play out, there might be a conflict, and perceived conflicts of interest.
Yep.
And I think that's the real difference of working in government versus the private sector, is that we have to work harder on the perceived conflicts of interest. Now, my mind's racing going, would that get you in trouble in a court? But it doesn't matter, because it would get you in trouble with, say, the Public Service Commissioner or the Auditor General, and just the sort of general public sniff test of it just looks bad.
And just from a court perspective, I think if you work on the basis of don't give Defence Counsel avenues for argument.
Yeah.
So if it's squeaky clean, you're probably not going to end up going to a defender hearing.
Yeah.
If there's avenues to start chipping away at stuff or discredit things, then you are.
Yeah. But actually the other thing is that all of this guidance, and the Auditor General's guidance also says, but New Zealand is a small place. There's lots of connections. You have to draw a line somewhere. Let's not be ridiculous with it.
Yep.
So things that are really remote or really far removed, again, if in doubt, call it out and have a discussion about it. But it may be that, it's okay that we know people.
I think it's good too to think about the benefit test.
Yeah.
Like, is someone getting an advantage or disadvantage from this?
Yeah.
So if I worked in a role that processed license applications, for example, and I got one from my auntie and it was all legitimate and proper and there was I would ordinarily process it.
Yeah.
Is that a conflict of interest? Potentially. Do I need to get too concerned about it? No, I should definitely call it out. The manager would go, that's fine. I'll chuck that one through. No drama. You know?
That's right. Particularly when you've got a really easy option there, like giving it to a colleague or passing it up to a manager and letting them decide what to do.
Yeah.
I think that's better. I think it's a really good example too, where your friends and people around you, friends of your family, know you work here. And so if they need a service from us, they might try and come straight to you.
Jobs for your mates, favours for your mates.
Yeah, well, they just think, again, if in a private sector, this is exactly what would happen. If you needed a mortgage, you'd go to the mortgage manager who you knew. You wouldn't just queue up in the branch.
Yep.
But we need to make people queue up. So if somebody comes to you and says, I need this thing, can you help me out with it? The answer is, well, you should just go in through the front door.
Like everyone else.
Join the contact centre queue, or just direct them to the normal website form or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because again, it's that perception that, I know somebody who got that done faster because they had a mate at Wakakotahi who did it for them. So just be careful around that stuff too.
There's a real balance there, because if the thing wasn't an ordinary thing, and someone rang you and said, hey, Henry, who in Wakakotahi do I need to go to get this thing done that you don't have a normal process for? That's kind of okay.
Yeah, actually, I get that a lot. I get a lot of people I've worked with contacting me and saying, hey, I've got this weird thing I need to talk to someone at Wakakotahi about. Can you help me find that person? I'm happy to help them find the right person and then pass them
Get
off.
on with it. Yeah. You don't just go, no, sorry, you got to call the call centre.
Yeah. But if somebody came to me and said,
can you speed up my application? Because come on, we're good mates. Can you ever chat to those guys in that team and make it go faster? And you said, yeah, sure. And, they're getting a big benefit from that. It's helping them out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's a fine line. And I think because the line is so fine or perhaps blurred, that's why I think one of the big lessons from this is, if in doubt, call it out. If you're not sure, raise your hand. Because you can easily sometimes start out doing something with good intention, get into it and then go, oh, crikey, this might be a conflict or potential conflict situation. If you find yourself like that, put your hand up, talk to your manager, just, own it.
Yeah.
No one's going to get in trouble for that, are they? It's just about doing the right thing. So.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the other related stuff now.
Yeah, sure.
So the other thing that comes through in the Code of Conducts is the need to maintain the political neutrality required to enable us to work with current and future governments. So again, you might not feel that we're that close to the beehive, but we are. We need to in our personal lives and certainly in our professional lives, act in a way which is politically neutral. And there's a bit of a cliche that goes, you keep your politics out of your job and your job out of your politics.
Right.
So if you are politically active outside of work, could be, helping with campaigning and political campaigns, delivering leaflets or whatever, that is okay, provided you're not too senior. But you need to keep that well out of your jobs. Keep your politics out of your job, and of course, keep your job out of your politics. Don't be commenting on social media about stuff that Waka Kotahi is doing, and certainly not stuff that you're working on. Because some of it's big things like Transmission Gully. We're about to consult on our new funding and fees, and there's going to be a whole lot of impacts for people around funding.
So there's times,
Don't go there.
if I can just comment, there's times when it's okay and there's times when it's not. So for example, if we've just, we're looking to recruit a bunch of people and we've just put our ad out, there's nothing wrong with taking the link to that ad and putting it on Facebook messaging for your mates to see and go, hey, we're looking for new people. If you know anyone, here's this job come up. But when someone puts a comment, sort of a meme or a joke around Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and other people are making jokes, just don't comment.
Yeah, and
either way,
it's the political neutrality, right? Certainly, we can help to say things that are consistent, but if you're wanting to make sort of political comments or comments that could be seen as political, be very cautious.
What about comments on political things rather than political comments? Is it?
Well, again, I think as long as you keep it distance from your job, that's okay. So if it's got nothing to do with transport, that's okay. Once it starts to do with transport, just be cautious. Again, you can seek guidance on these things.
And I always use that kind of, always work on the basis that one day someone's going to investigate your investigation. And you never know when that's going to happen. You know, there's a commission of inquiry in 2 years' time that looks at something that we did a year ago, and someone finds some Facebook junk that you've put up there, making silly comments. It's an avenue for someone to discredit your integrity, to show that you're not neutral, you're not impartial.
Now, I want to talk about the other staff policies we have.
Yeah, sure.
So we've talked about the Waka Kotahi Code of Conduct, the Conflicts of Interest policy. We also have a sensitive expenditure policy, and we have a policy on giving koha, and also a receiving gifts and hospitality policy.
Yeah.
So there's two aspects to that policy, which is about when is it okay to receive gifts and hospitality, and the answer is not very often. So there are a few other exceptions to the policy, but the main one is if it's incidental. So if you are having a business meeting at somebody's venue and they offer you a cup of tea, you don't have to worry about that. That is incidental to the work that you're doing for the agency. Going out for a coffee with someone is okay, unless there's sort of a real pattern here where we're actually not doing business with them. They're just always taking you out for coffee. The other aspect of the policy is when you have to put it in the register. And even when you decline offers of gifts and hospitality, if it's over $100, you're required to put it in the register. And again, that just keeps us all safe by saying, look, these things happen, and when they happen, we are transparent about it.
Yeah, and I'm going to confess and say I don't know the particulars of those policies exceptionally well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's in there, but as a golden rule, if it involves booze, don't do it.
Yeah,
so a cup of tea, fine. A pint starts to look a bit questionable, or a bottle of wine, or something. It just
I
it
think
has
actually,
a different feel to it, eh?
Yeah, I feel like in the last 10 years it's got a lot easier, because everybody who works with and around government has realised that we just don't accept gifts and hospitality, and they've stopped asking.
Yeah.
I remember there was a huge thing, don't accept tickets to the Rugby World Cup. I'd be so surprised if these days anyone tried to offer someone in government a ticket to a sports game, because we're always going to say no. A ticket to an industry awards function, or a ticket to a seminar or conference that's relevant to our work, maybe. But again, work your way through the policy. But it's getting easier because people are starting to understand that we don't do this.
We don't do that stuff. Yeah, that's probably more likely to arise small town, small business. we've done the work now, should we go and have a beer?
Yeah.
No, stay out of that stuff.
So check out the staff policies. They are there. They're good, and as I say, they've got sort of checklists and things that you can work through to help you when you feel a little unsure what to do.
Yeah, I think quite importantly too, these things aren't designed to be the fun police. They're there to protect you.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
And yes, they do put some restrictions around what you can and can't and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But it's actually there ultimately to protect your integrity, which is crucial, and to keep you out of that difficult position of having to justify stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just going to check my notes. I think we've covered off everything. Don't do favours for your mates.
Yes, or be seen to do
Be
favours.
seen to be doing it.
Yeah.
Err on the side of caution and disclose stuff early, but keep it real. You don't have to cook up big fanciful scenarios.
Yeah.
Do it in advance. But if you find yourself in that conflicted situation, or you think you might be, put your hand up and call it out.
Yeah.
And please check out all of the documentation we've got around this. We talk about 4 or 5 different policies. They're only short, quick reads.
Yeah.
Really succinct. The integrity and conduct standards, 1-pager.
I would start with this one. I'll give this one another plug because it was revamped earlier this year. Te Tikanga Whanonga, our code of conduct. Good place to start.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Henry.
Stay safe out there.
Thank you, everybody. Ka kite anō.
Oh. Very good. You can't see that I'm laughing because I've got a mask on.